Hi, everyone. Today, let's talk about the news. First up, we'll talk about the most exciting part of the news, which is the monthly job claims that were much better than expected. Next up, Twitter is putting a fact-checking label underneath President Trump's tweets. So let's talk about what the potential effects to Twitter might be. And lastly, an Italian trader loses his entire life savings on one insanely risky position. Let's learn how to not do that. As always, there will be jelly at the end, which is something I enjoyed outside of the markets. If you have big dreams like buying this 6-bedroom, 5-bath house in Houston, Texas, or if you're just getting started on your journey to financial freedom, definitely like and subscribe. The house comes with these pretty sweet chairs, a 2-story living space. The kitchen cabinets are a little dark, but I like the countertops. It has a pretty sweet theater room with 4 chairs. And this is a very, very nice master suite. Keep your dreams at the front of your mind. Like and subscribe. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. First up is the most popular story of the day, the jobless claims. It says here that the SPY gained 2.56% on Friday after the Labor Department reported one of the most stunning job reports of all time. So the reason that this was so abnormal is that the analysts were extremely far off. So they expected that the jobless claims were going to be somewhere around negative 8 million jobs. And it turned out that we gained 2.5 million jobs, which is about a difference of 7%. So they estimated it would be at about 20% jobless claims, and it ended up being at 13.3% jobless claims. Now, it's not uncommon for analysts to be wrong, but to be wrong by this much is pretty uncommon. They're usually off by a little bit, plus or minus a little bit. But not only did we not lose jobs, we actually gained 2.5 million jobs in May, which is an indicator that we are reopening the economy. And as a result of that, the S&P 500 went up over 2.5%. Of course, President Trump touted this as being a great success and saying that the U.S. economy is like a rocket ship. And he's not completely wrong. This is very good stuff. And as an investor, I like to see it. It goes on to explain that this means the economy is potentially recovering a little bit faster than expected. It also says that the $600 extra per week in unemployment payments is not affecting the labor force as much. So the idea here is that if you're receiving additional unemployment payments, that you would be less likely to want to go seek a job or get your old job back because there is potential that you are making more money to work less. But these jobless claims are contradicting that narrative. This led Jim Cramer to say that this is evidence that the U.S. is not in a depression. I never really believed that we were in a depression, but I did think that there was potential this recovery could take longer. And remember, the stock market is not the real economy. The real economy is going to take longer to recover than this. But in terms of the stock market, there is potential to make new highs even without improving economic conditions. Next up, Donald Trump versus Jack Dorsey. It says here in 2013, Twitter went public with its pledge to enable any voice to echo around the world instantly and unfiltered. And they accomplished that. They managed to live up to that kind of a bold statement. However, last month, they labeled one of President Trump's tweets with a fact check, and the president went off to sign an executive order, which immediately knocked the stock down about 9%. It says here that the stock has already struggled and is underperforming the market as well as its competitors in Facebook and Snapchat. However, most analysts still rate Twitter a hold. So the problem here is that Twitter is considered a platform and not an editor. So do they really have the authority to impose certain things on certain people and not on other people? So they are given this protection as a platform to where they are not liable for all of the tweets on their platform, but that benefit is only allowed to them if they give equal treatment to everyone on their platform. But in isolating the president, they are not doing that, which would make them more of an editor. If they become an editor, then they are liable for every single thing on their platform, and essentially Twitter would cease to exist. This is why this is a pretty significant issue for Twitter and for them to take on the president. If Twitter gets regulated in this way by the federal government, I just don't see a world where Twitter would be able to survive. I mean, they would be sued every single day by millions of people. and that's certainly not a way that a business can survive. The article goes on to say that Twitter has been hit particularly hard by the cough situation. This is due to large amounts of its volume being driven by sports and concerts and product launches. But since all of those things are on hold right now, they've seen a decrease in revenue. This past week, Twitter was downloaded 677,000 times across the world, which is its best single day ever. It also had over 40 million active users in a single day, which is another record. It says here that analysts are predicting an 18% growth per year in active users. However, the stock currently isn't cheap because it's currently trading at 80 times its per earnings estimates for 2020. Again, it goes on to say that analysts see revenue slipping this year due to the cough situation. However, they do project a growth in 2021 by about 75%, up to 66 cents per share. All of that is great if they are getting record numbers of downloads, record numbers of users, which is going to give them record numbers of ad traffic. But all of that is only good assuming that the federal government does not put the editor stamp on Twitter. That essentially would be a death warrant. And if that is the case, they would likely have to revert back to what they were doing, and they would no longer be able to fact check individuals or treat any specific individuals differently than anybody else, which honestly is probably a better way for them to go anyway. Last up, Italian trader loses his entire life savings on one position. Basically, he saw that Luckin coffee was down 89% and that trading had been halted. So he took his entire life savings and invested it in Luckin coffee. Anytime you invest in a single investment, especially something that is based out of China, you're making a bad decision. Diversity is extremely important when investing, and the US-China relationship and China's relationship with its own companies has always been a risk. If you don't account for that risk, then there is certainly potential to be burned. It shows here the results of his trade, 95.25% loss with a current value of 11,169 euros. That's not ideal. So it looks like his cost basis was 235,000 euros, and it went all the way down to 11,169 euros. So my first question is, at what point do you not cut losses? So this guy held this negative position forever. He must really believe in Luckin coffee. I'm not sure exactly what logic you have to not cut losses at some point. Reddit was not particularly kind to his post, saying you still have 12K left over, come back tomorrow and finish the job. He was obviously asked why he did what he did, and he said it was before the cough situation, and nobody knew back then that it had gone from $17 to $51 in 2 months. And he said it could have kept going instead of exploding. It says here he still runs 2 businesses, so this guy is relatively smart, assuming that these businesses are doing well. But he is not a good investor. So to recap, the jobless claims were much, much better than expected in May. So this points to a quicker recovery than expected. Jack Dorsey is taking on President Trump. That's a bold move. See how that plays out for him. And an Italian man invested his entire life savings in a single stock. And the lesson here is always diversify and understand when you're investing in Chinese companies, there is going to be risk. Comment down below what you think of Luckin Coffee and what you think of Jack Dorsey versus Donald Trump. Is the government going to step in on Twitter? Are they a good investment? Subscribe if you found this informative in any way. And with that, let's get to today's jelly. Today's jelly is a classic. The surfer dude from back in the day who was on Tosh.0. They did a revisit with him just to see what his life is like. So here's a little bit of what that looks like.
You just drop in and just smack the lip, whoop-ah, drop down, snap, ah, and then after that, you just drop in, you just ride the barrel and get pitted, so pitted like that.
We wanted to know, whatever happened to this surfer dude? Well, Peasley is now a 35-year-old husband and father. Still surfing, he remembers that interview well.
I knew that I had to do some type of an interview that was going to bring a lot of attention. It couldn't just be your average surfer doing an interview. I mean, that would have just been commonplace.
And a lot of attention he got.
People were thinking, was he being serious? Was he faking it? And the truth of the matter is I was seriously faking it.
So it turns out he's just a funny dude who really made the best out of a local news interview and really generated a lot of fame for himself. If you want to watch the full interview, I will post it in the description. Definitely comment down below if you remember this. It's really a classic. I believe the original video is about 10 years old now. And again, like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content, and have a great day.